we'll go ahead and kick off. Welcome, everyone. My name is Sean Olds. I'm the co-founder of Boodle AI. We are excited today in our AI collaborative to have Josh Alcorn. And I had the pleasure, as you may have heard him a couple of minutes ago, of chatting with him 2 weeks ago on his podcast. And really, as always, when I talked to him, learned a lot and just had a lot of great mind share. And so wanted to bring him onto the AI collaborative so he could do the same thing and share. So Josh, I'll just kick off. We'll jump in. Do you want to give a little bit of your background and then kind of finish up with what got you to where you're at? What got you into nonprofit storytelling?
Absolutely. Grateful, Sean, to you and your community for welcoming me here today. And happy to return the favor as you were on Technical Thursdays a couple weeks ago, as you said. I'm a nonprofit fundraiser. I started as a political fundraiser and became a nonprofit fundraiser when the candidate politician I was working for passed away, and I helped his family start a nonprofit to sort of continue his work and mission, and learned very quickly that political fundraising is a lot different than philanthropic fundraising. Some things are the same, some things are harder, some things are easier, but it ain't the same at all. And that light bulb really, I'm mixing up my metaphors here, but that light bulb really switched, or it went on when I went to the Nonprofit Storytelling Conference in 2018 and saw that there's a whole way of doing this fundraising thing that puts the focus on the donor and the impact that they can have in the lives of the people that you serve. Rooted in storytelling, rooted in strong, clear asks, and rooted really in powerful donor communications. And that was something that's kind of missing from political fundraising. There's still a space, obviously, for truly relational fundraising in nonprofits. And my major gift officer friends will say that that's the most important part of it. I tend to think that it's the mass donors and the direct mail and the emails and those sorts of things that are super powerful. Maybe you raise a little bit less money with your direct mail program than you do from your major donors, but you're engaging with more people and growing and spreading awareness of your mission a lot faster. So I worked at that nonprofit for 5 or 6 years, and then in 2021 joined the Nonprofit Storytelling Conference team as a co-producer. So part of what I do is create the content and create sessions for the conference. I'll drop a link in the chat. We're November 11th, 12th, and 13th in outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico this year. So I help work with our speaker family to create the sessions and the content, work with the community. We have like we said, a weekly webinar, an online community, always helping nonprofit fundraisers grow by telling better stories, finding donations wherever they may be, and doing a better job of communicating with your donors. So it's a great job. And I get to do stuff like this with you.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you doing it. Two things that really resonated. One, I did the reverse of you. I started out in nonprofits right after college, went on my first nonprofit board, started fundraising, and then within a couple of years had the opportunity to start political fundraising and thought, oh, if I already know how to raise for nonprofits, of course I know how to raise for political. And it was, as you said, very different. And there was a lot to learn. But the other thing I really appreciate in what you said, I mean, the numbers definitely play out. The major donors give in just raw dollars more money. But one of the problems you have is when one major donor disappears from your organization loses a lot of money. And without cultivating those smaller donors, and a 25-year-old donor today is your major donor 20 years from now.
100%.
If you don't cultivate them in the proper way, and you just treat them as any other donor, they're going to find another organization to be a part of, right? They're going to go become a major gift donor in their 40s to somebody else. So I think you're spot on that really understanding how to tell your story to the masses is what's going to help people find those major gift donors later on.
Absolutely.
So, awesome. I'm wondering if you can dig in a little bit. What got you starting to explore the use of AI in storytelling? A lot of people express concern or fear around the robots taking over. So what got you interested and continues your interest in it?
Sure. Great question. Let's see. I guess there are some people who are early adopters and some people who kind of want to wait to see or kind of have some fear. I'm definitely an early adopter and was sort of raised to be that way. I remember my dad bringing home a CD player in like 1983 or 84. He's probably the first person on our block to have a CD player, and he brought the Dire Straits Brothers in Arms CD home. It was the first CD in our house. And so like that was always part of the thing. We had one of the first computers on the block. My parents were sort of that way. So part of it was just the newness and the excitement I have around new things. But part of it was the speed with which you could create content and customize content, and how that can help fundraisers uh, uh, do more things more quickly, right? So it used to be when I was a frontline fundraiser, I'd sit down to write an emergency fundraising e-appeal or a direct mail campaign, and it would take 2 days. It would take a while to get the ideas down, to work to figure out what the fundraising offer was, to write the copy, to do the landing page, all that stuff. It took a while, and with AI, you can do it so much faster, which means you can do more of it. And if what used to take you 12 hours now takes you, 45 minutes, you have 11 hours and 15 minutes to do other stuff. And you can do more fundraising. You can spend more time with your kids. You can coach the baseball team. You can spend more time engaging with your major donors or whatever. So that to me seemed like a really great way to be able to do more and to be able to spend more time and communicate more frequently with donors. And also,
Absolutely.
as a person who has to sort of help, whose responsibility is to help other fundraisers grow and level up, I figured if I could figure this out or dive into it, I'll be able to help even more folks along the way.
Absolutely. And I want to key in on one point. You used a very key word there, which is customize. I think a lot of people, not just in the nonprofit space, even the for-profit space, view AI as just a generic, like, well, if I put this in and Sally over at XYZ organization puts it in, we're both going to have the same thing. It's going to sound the same. And
Yeah,
what a lot of people don't understand is there is an ability to get the large language models to key in on what you do. You can load up your previous writings, you can load up your previous grants, you can load up previous, social posts that you've done and get it to write in your voice, just
yeah,
at scale, at a scale that you can't do. And so I think that customization is key because people who are not used to the technology really view it as just it's a generic one size fits all. And it will be if that's all you use, if you use the log in and try and use it. But if
yeah.
you understand how to incorporate into your organization and, as you said, customize it, it becomes a lot more powerful.
For sure, for sure. And this is possibly a new-ish development. So when I first started using AI tools, a year or so ago, it all kind of sounded the same. And you could see, and you still see, marketing emails from nonprofits and from other organizations, from for-profit companies that were very clearly written by AI. If you have the eyes for it, and if you've used it enough, you can kind of see, right? The sentence structure, the parallelism, and I was an English teacher too, so a bunch of like language techniques and tactics are pretty common in some chatbots. And so the ability that I've discovered through Boodlebox over the last, I don't know, 2 months or so that I've been using it, the ability to upload stuff to the knowledge bank, to customize your language, to teach the bots that you're using, teach the threads, how you write and how you sound. That's a game changer for me, because you don't want your fundraising to sound like it was written based on a bunch of bad fundraising. And I think that's one of the problems with a lot of generative AI options, is that the fundraising it's built to know is kind of bad. And so we at the Nonprofit Storytelling Conference have a better way of communicating with the donors, have a better kind of direct response based fundraising, and the ability to load that into the knowledge bank and get stuff out based on your writing, based on sort of what's best for nonprofits. In our experience is a complete game changer.
Well, let's delve into that experience. You've been doing this now since the technology came out. We can talk in theory for the next 20 minutes, and a lot of people will walk
Sure.
away as uninformed as they were. How can nonprofits use this to create impactful messaging? Can you provide us some examples or ideas?
Sure, sure. Can I share my screen? Because I have,
Please.
let's see, share. Make sure I got the right uh, window up here. It, yep. Okay. Uh, here's what I've done. Let's see. I use AI a lot in my work for content creation and to help fundraisers figure out how to use AI to make their own content. And so what I've done is I've trained two bots, created two threads in Boodlebox, and uploaded a bunch of knowledge to help people who come into these threads, and I'll share links for you guys, to write two very particular kinds of fundraising. Let's start with the Memorial Day campaign. So Memorial Day is a great time to be raising money. Every organization, every for-profit company is running a Memorial Day sale. Donors who are looking on their phones, when they're sitting by the grill or at the beach or wherever they are on their phones, scrolling through social media, checking their email a bunch, not a lot going on. And so if you can be delivering messages, fundraising offers to your donors at that point, they're a lot more likely to respond. Taking a step back, all Memorial Day is an excuse to ask donors to make a gift. And that's sort of at the root of everything we do at the storytelling conferences, encourage people to ask the donors to make a gift. So Memorial Day is a good day, a good time of year to do that. To help create quickly a 4-email fundraising campaign, I came into Boodle. I'm working with a couple of different chat bots. The nonprofit fundraising letter bot is the main one I use here. But I started by attaching a couple of pieces of information to the thread. A example of a really good fundraising email. So sort of the exact email that I would send any other time of year, right? Each paragraph has a specific job. It's sort of based on best practices. It's direct, short sentences, and said to the bot, like, use this as an example of every email you write in this 4-email campaign. I also uploaded a document called Needs Ideas. So this is a document I created myself. It sort of outlines what a good need is for an organization. So if you're a animal rescue organization, your needs would be spaying and neutering cats, helping dogs who've been injured, right? So I have a whole bunch of needs that organizations have, nonprofits have, loaded up there. I also uploaded a transcript of a 10-minute training that a colleague of mine did around Memorial Day fundraising. And then I wrote a bunch of instructions for the bot on how to write this email, very specific things like use short sentences, keep paragraphs to no more than 2 sentences, 6th grade reading level, no sentences with multiple clauses and commas. Like I got very specific sort of best practices for direct response fundraising. So I uploaded all that to the knowledge bank. And then just started working with the bot to get Memorial Day fundraising emails written. I taught it to ask a couple of questions, to sort of modify some of the questions that it asks at the beginning. And then based on your responses to those questions, it kicks out a first email, the email that should go on Friday. And then whoever's using it, improves that email, makes it a little bit more like your organization. And then once you're comfortable with it, you ask the bot to create the next 3 emails, and it creates an email for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So that's that one. I also did a very similar thing. This is more general.
Can I ask one quick question just to highlight?
Yeah.
What is in the upper right, you showed the documents. What is that 14 that's there?
These are the 14 people who I invited into this chat. So one of the things I run a monthly membership community for nonprofits, nonprofit fundraisers. And on Friday, I invited I invited the whole community, and 14 people took me up on it. And so as you'll see in this thread, there's a bunch of different organizations querying the bot and getting really great fundraising emails and appeals out from that.
So they're able to all work with you inside the one chat with the AIs all together.
It's great.
That's great.
Yep. It's very cool. And so I debuted that on Friday to my community, and it worked great. Obviously, we're not at Memorial Day yet, so nobody's actually sent these things. But the content that's coming back is really good. And folks are able to work with the bots to get stuff that's more unique and personal to their organization. We're kind of all doing it in one thread. So if I were an organization, I would be encouraging all of you to go out. If I were not here, I would be encouraging you guys to do this yourself, right? To upload a bunch of your email fundraising appeals, upload a bunch of your print appeals, upload a bunch of your social media posts, et cetera, so that you can sort of teach the bot what your style and voice is. We kind of have like 14 different organizations in here, so it gets a little muddy, but that's just it's working because it's just one kind of campaign. If that makes sense. Is that helpful, Sean?
That's great. Thank you, Josh.
So I mean, let's just start. So please create a Memorial Day fundraising campaign for my organization, Rock Orphanage. Conscious of time, I just want to show you guys how the first part of this works, and I'll share links for you guys to be able to use this too. So it's reviewing the knowledge. So here's the couple of questions it's going to ask me. The most important is, what is the primary need or program you would like to highlight in this campaign? And I forget if this is one of the automatic questions that this particular bot asks, or if this is one of the questions I asked it to ask or taught it to ask. And then it's got 3 or 4 more questions. I'll ask it to, I would like this campaign to focus on rescuing one individual rock who has been stolen from his ancestral home in a riverbed in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, and taken to a quarry in New Hope, Pennsylvania. It costs $7 to rescue one rock and return him home. Rock Orphanage is a made-up fictitious nonprofit that my colleagues and I used for trainings. And one of the things that we do, oh, looks like somebody else is working on this at the same time. So now it's going to write this first email. I don't know if we'll probably delve into some other questions if you want, but this first email is usually pretty good. So it's going to give me an outline. I'll say yes to the outline, and then it'll create the content for me. Got a story at the center, going to introduce Rocky, paint a picture of the life that he had, what his life was, the scary journey on his trip, and ask the donor to help him to be the hero for $7.
And so as you said earlier, Josh, all things you could have done, but over the course of a couple of hours, and now you're able to do it in minutes.
Couple minutes. Yep. And it's 4 emails, right? So it's the entire campaign. I could teach it to write the landing page copy as well. Didn't do that, but that would be an easy thing to do. Although not every organization is going to be able to update the landing page or create a unique landing page for this particular campaign. But that's it.
This is great. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it. So we know that organizations, especially as it runs into technology, and again, this is not limited to nonprofits, corporations run into it too, but nonprofits have definitely, been challenged many times by technology. What do you see as some of the challenges nonprofits are going to run into with generative AI and using it in storytelling?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And so there's a bunch of different ways you can go. There's the internal fears that people have. This won't sound like me. This is cheating. My donors are going to know and be worried about it. My boss isn't on board with it. We don't have a policy about using AI. When you're reading the news, most people who are talking about AI in the news aren't like talking about it very positively, right? And don't get me wrong, there's a bunch of danger ahead if we don't do this right? So there's the internal hurdles. There's also the external hurdles, right? And I think we as fundraisers broadly, generally, tend to make the external pressures bigger than they actually are. What if my donors find out? My donors will be upset with me that I'm using AI. No, they won't. They'd be glad to know that you're using AI, that you're moving faster through things and increasing the volume of your donor communications. And if you're using tools that everybody else has access to do that, they're going to be happy. They'll see that as being a good use of their donations. I think so those are a couple. And I think there's also this general fear of the new, and maybe because we're in the nonprofit sector, I don't know, this could be a whole nother webinar. If there's a fundraisers. But we may not want to be the first to do something for fear of messing up. And like, I don't know, as I've talked about before, I'm kind of pushing the edges of things all the time anyway. And so that wasn't necessarily a fear for me. But to my fellow fundraisers, I get it, I recognize it, and it's true. And I want to validate your feelings and concerns, but also encourage you to think um, about this as how can you help more of the people you serve? How can you serve your community better? How can you grow your organization faster? And if using some of these AI tools to help you do things faster, to increase your donor communications, to create more personalized, customized communications for your major donors, like then you owe it to yourself and to your community and to the beneficiaries or cause that you serve.
Yeah. So two things I key in on there. One is the danger, the fear side. One of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Max Tegmark. About 5 years ago, he wrote a book called Life 3.0. And in there, and I'm paraphrasing it, but it's something along the lines, he says, we invented fire, we really messed it up. And then we invented fire extinguishers, fire engines, fire alarms, and fire exits. And his point obviously is we can't do without fire. We need fire. It's very powerful, but we just have to figure out how to harness it and how to keep it in check. And AI is very much the same way. It's a hugely powerful tool. It could be used for very malicious things. But if we take the lead in building those fire engines, building the fire exits, and building the fire alarms, we can make sure it gets used for good. I also really enjoyed, and I've been telling donors this for 8 years as we've been trying to sell AI into nonprofits, or telling nonprofits this, that their donors are not looking to throw away money. Their donors are trying to invest money. They're not looking for a cash return, but they are looking for a good return on their investment. And their donors would never go to a accountant who charges them by the hour if their accountant was using a slide rule, right? They want to know they're using a calculator in Excel. And so I loved your point that the more we show them, hey, we're using technology so that less of your money is going towards overhead and more of your money is going towards mission. That's what donors want to do and want to see. So, so I think one of the other fears I hear a lot, and you touched on it at the very beginning, and we talked about it a little bit, is that, making sure it's in your voice. And so can you talk to us a little bit about, as nonprofits and as fundraisers like you have embraced the technology, how do you still make sure that it remains authentic and that it still remains personalized rather than just becoming that robot that's reaching out?
Yeah, great question. And I think that many people have this misconception. I don't know, this might not totally be true, but at least in my experience, many people have this misconception that whatever you get out from AI is all that you need to do. Like, just take it and paste it into your email. If it's an email you're writing to a donor, paste it into your CRM or your broadcast email solution, whatever that is. If you're sending a mass email, put it in a Word doc and send it to the printer if it's a print appeal. That's not the case. You really need to, at the very beginning, get comfortable editing. I have a 7-year-old son. He had a book report. He was writing about Ricky Henderson, one of his favorite baseball players. And so he wrote it, and then we went back and worked on it together. What's the job of your topic sentence? Next comes your 3 detail points, right? And so you got to kind of do that early on as you're working with these individual chatbots in your platform or different ones, to make sure that you're turning what is a mold of clay into whatever piece of donor communications you're working on. So that's just looking at it with a critical eye, as if you were reviewing some fundraising that a peer wrote or a colleague wrote. So maybe that's the first point. Recognize that what you're getting out is a good first draft. Oh, there's my thumbs up.
Right.
The second thing I would say is you got to learn to ask good questions or to prompt the bot very well. Don't just type in, write me a fundraising letter. Now, your product, your platform will then will return with a couple of questions to help make it better. But even then, the more specific you can be, especially around how you want it to sound, use short sentences. Don't use big words. Keep this at a 6th grade reading level. I'm giving you all very specific things right now to remind the bot. Use active language. Use active verbs. Put actions at the center of each sentence and paragraph. Highlight the need. Make sure you're asking donors in the first 3 paragraphs to make a gift. All of the principles of best practice principles of direct response fundraising need to be like top line and in the first couple of things you're prompting the bot to do.
So it's almost like, and this is what we tell teams all the time, it's almost like hiring one of the smartest graduate students you could get a hold of out of graduate school. Even though they're super smart in the field of fundraising, they don't know the particulars for your
Sure.
organization. And it's going to take them a couple of days, if not a week or two, to get up to speed and understand that.
Yeah.
We do that already with humans. It's just a matter of getting comfortable doing it with the machines. All right, I know we're almost out of time. I'm going to ask one last question, unless
Yeah.
anybody wants to put questions in. I do want to address, Megan, you brought up a good point on the slippery slope with overhead versus mission. And the point I was trying to get to, and there are corporations that are looking at this as well, is if I'm investing a certain number of dollars and I get X output, can I invest the same amount of dollars into overhead and get 3 or 4X output? Google announced at the end of last year that for the same developer base that they had the 6 months before generative AI and 6 months after generative AI, they saw 38% productive more code. So they didn't quit spending any money, they just produced a heck of a lot more. And that's the same thing that nonprofits are going to be able to do. If I, as a donor, can put $100 in and get $1,000 of result, that's great. But if you can show me you can get me $10,000 of result, maybe I start donating $200 because I feel like I'm getting more bang for my buck.
For sure.
So last thing, let's close out with you said you're one of the lead, you take the lead on this. You're one of the early adopters. What's out there in the technology storytelling space as it relates to nonprofits that's got you excited, or what should nonprofits be looking for?
Yeah, well, I certainly think that AI is one of the three things that nonprofit fundraisers should be focusing on. The other two being the great wealth transfer from baby boomers to their kids, and donor advised funds, which are sort of tied up with that too. I think that this sort of technology is a great thing to focus on with major donors, to talk to your major donors about what you're doing, tell them the story of how this type of technology can help your organization grow and be more nimble and scale up your volume of donor communications. The investment is small, depending on the platform, and you can go to a major donor. Don't even really have to go to a major donor and say, would you underwrite our adventure or first foray into AI with a gift? And certain major donors who are tech savvy and sort of forward leaning and early adopters would love to write that check. Again, we're not talking about $100,000 for a new wing on a building or anything, and it'd probably be more than $100,000 for a new wing on a building, but you get what I mean. So use your first foray into generative AI to help your nonprofit as an excuse to talk to a major donor about this, get their feedback, and then ask them for a gift to help underwrite it. That's a great strategy. I would encourage everyone to think about.
Great idea, Josh. Josh, thank you so much for taking the time. Really love
Thank you, brother, for having me.
We appreciate your time. So have a great week. Thank you everyone for joining,
See you
and
guys.
talk soon.
You bet. Bye.